Good morning. Our next session is about to start. Before it does, I want to give a quick recap as to what's happening here in the Sdg Action Zone. As everybody knows, today is day 3. We're running live stream for those that are not able to be here in the room. We've had an amazing response to the 2 hashtags that we've put out. One is For People, For Planet, which is laddering up into the decade of action that is being coordinated and a movement that's being coordinated around accelerating SDG action and implementation. My name is Dauda Jabarte. I am the MC for the morning and early afternoon. I'm the global head of the SDG Strategy Hub, which is aimed at doing a couple of different things, but really helping increase the demand for the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the supply and accountability, closing the gaps between awareness and action, and really helping coordinate and getting us to exponential rather than incremental. Part of the reason why I'm super excited about the next panel is in the spirit of what we've been doing here all day so far, is really looking at a sectoral approach and how to move the needle aggressively. So rather than looking at specific companies, looking at a sector holistically and connecting the various dots with regard to SDG implementation and action. The United Nations has been working very closely with GSMA since 2016 when they went around and launched the SDG in Action report, which is an annual report that measures impact of the mobile industry. As everybody knows, the mobile industry reaches about 5.2 billion people, which is 3/4 of the world's population. That's amazing. What that also means, though, is 1/4 is not yet met and reached. So we have about 2 billion people around the world that need that access, and that access will hopefully help inspire and deliver and connect them both economically, socially, politically, and giving the voice to those that are at the moment without access. I will love to introduce our moderator, Krista Jory. She's a CEO and co-founder of Leaders on Purpose. You're most welcome.
Welcome, everybody. We have an exciting session. I'm really excited to be here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, for sure. I'd love to invite the panelists to come up, and I will introduce them to you. So we have Mats Granred. Mats is the Director General of GSMA, and he's also a member of the board. Mats has been a proponent of sustainability for a long time. He's led the industry to become the very first to commit to the SDGs, and really delighted to talk with him. We also have Patricia Obonai. Patricia is the CEO of Vodafone and a member of its board. She is the very first Ghanaian CEO of Vodafone, and comes to that role with a wealth of experience in information and technology and telecommunications. So really excited to talk with her about how she's bringing the SDGs and purpose into the core of the business strategy. Then we have Miriam Jameh also joining us, and really delighted to have Miriam with us. Miriam is the very first winner of first of all, she's the founder of I Am the Code. She's also the very first Black woman to win the UNICEF and Bill and Melinda Gates Goalkeepers Innovation Award. She's doing remarkable work and really to empower girls and women through telecommunications and technology, and excited to really hear about her amazing story. So with that, I will kick us off. Welcome, everyone. Really, it's such a powerful topic, and I'm just delighted to be here with you all. So, Mats, I'll start with you with our first question. So, you've done such remarkable work to lead the industry to commit to the SDGs. And with that work, I mean, from an industry perspective, it's one thing to commit, and that is a huge, it's one thing to commit, but it's another thing really to bring that into action. And I know you've just come out with a report yesterday or 2 days ago on how the telecommunications industry is impacting all 17 SDGs. I wonder if you can talk about that work.
Sure. No, thank you very much for that. And I think we were the first industry to commit to the 17 goals in the beginning of 2016. And ever since then, we have worked hard with delivering upon them. And as was announced earlier, this is the 4th edition of the Impact Report. We also have an Sdg in Action app that you can go in and download, and it's very interactive and sort of being part of it. And I think the industry is hugely committed, because we're very much of a purpose-driven industry where we believe that we are intelligently connecting everyone and everything to a better future. And that better future is best described through the 17 goals. And I think if we would take a second to close our eyes and think of three buckets. Okay, now you can open your eyes again. So in 3 buckets, the first bucket is the people that are connected. Us here, we are connected to the internet. That is roughly 50% of the world's population. What was announced earlier, 3/4, the 5.2 billion, those are people that are connected through 2G. They can talk, they can use their voice to talk, but they cannot all access the internet. So 50% of the world can access internet. Okay, so now we have the 2 other buckets, and we have something called the coverage gap and the usage gap. The usage gap are people, this bucket number 2, usage gap. That's where people are covered by a 3G or a 4G network, i.e. a mobile internet network, but they decide not to use it. And that is a whopping 40%, or some 2.8 billion people that are covered, but they choose not to use the internet. And then we have the coverage gap, which is the balanced 10%. So you have 50%, 40%, and 10%. 10%, that's the coverage gap where there is no coverage. Even if I have a mobile phone and I have my 3G or 4G, I can't get access to it. So we're working hard with the usage gap, we're working hard with the coverage gap to connect the unconnected. And I think that is something that the industry is so driven of trying to achieve. And we have plenty of really good examples in here, from 400 million more people that are connected now to internet. We have mobile apps on healthcare, which is growing tremendously quickly. It's 230 million more people this year than last year that are using their mobile device to access healthcare apps. Education is another 130 million people this year versus last year. So there's a lot of momentum, much more needs to be done, but we're seeing a very positive trend.
So impressive. Thank you so much. Patricia, maybe building on what Mats has talked about, from a business perspective and really at the country level, how are you addressing these issues, and what does that look like from your perspective?
Thank you. So Vodafone, as a brand, operates in 24 countries. We partner 43 different markets, and we touch about 15 fixed networks. So we are a total telecommunications brand. And we say, exactly as Matt said, we connect for the future. So we go beyond making profits to make purpose a key part of our strategy. We said that we want to improve the lives of 1 billion people by 2025. We want to make sure that we don't do this at the cost of the planet. And so we want to reduce our environmental impact by 50% by 2025. This is directly delivering on the SDGs. We want to touch 3 pillars, which is digital connectivity, ensuring that we can connect people and bring them closer to this digital society that we all talk about. We want to drive inclusion. Who are we including? We are including our women. We are including our youth who are worried about their future and what digital brings. We are including those who are operating below the poverty line. And definitely, as I said, touching on planet. And these things speak specifically to SDGs 3, 4, and 5. And this is what we are daily living by from a global perspective. But when you come to the country, we make sure this is relevant for the people who we sell our services to. So for example, about a month ago, we were up in the north of our country, and we partnered with UNDP to touch about, just as a pilot, 1,500 women, where we gave them training in financial services and business training to help them to deliver on their enterprises, their small enterprises. This helps them to begin to save. We operate the biggest payments platform in the world, which is our M-Pesa platform. And so enabling women to know how to save on the devices that we give to them goes beyond profit. It helps this woman to be able to sustain her daily life and to support her kids. Our youth are worried about their future. So we set out into the country, and we are covering all 16 regions in Ghana, where we are doing national coding for free. We are aiming to train 10,000 kids. This will help them to prepare for the future. They will not be afraid of the digital society that we all talk about. What about our colleagues who are hearing impaired, for example, who are hard of hearing? How do we support them? How do they do their businesses? When we say we are driving connectivity and access, we have come out with what we call Super Care, and that delivers data services to them. It allows them to run their businesses. We train our staff to be able to use the sign language. And so when you come to our retail shops, you don't feel left out. You're a part of the community. That is 1% of the population of Ghana, and we cannot exclude them. So these things are practical. They deliver on equality, they deliver on health, they deliver on education, which is part of the SDG we talk about.
That's really impressive. Thank you so much. Miriam, really excited to have you here. And so we've talked about the industry level, we've talked about the business level. You're consistently named as one of the most influential women in the UK and in other areas. Can you talk about your personal story? I mean, the work that you're doing, it impacts so many people, but for you personally, how this has impacted you and inspired you?
There's less pressure, there's no pressure. Well, we now here, we're celebrating the United Nations 74th anniversary. I'm 45 years old. So, but you need to think about, when the UN was 45, we haven't done much really. And I think sitting here today, I'm humbled to be here to share what we're doing across the world, but also why we need to do more when we come to the United Nations and spend the week here together collaborating, but also looking into different industries. And so I was born in Senegal in 1974, extremely talented childhood and difficult childhood. So I was, unfortunately abandoned by my mother when I was 5 years old, and being raped at 11 years old in a UNICEF compound. And at 13 years old, I was trafficked from Senegal to France. So, and I think the passion you see today and the drive across the world and the drive for social justice is, we're not trying to fight, we're not trying to become victims, because there are millions of women and girls across the world who are being raped, being trafficked, they're going through difficulties. But I think at one stage we need to look into society and say, what can we do for other people? And so what I'm trying to do right now, and the reason why I am the code is taking a global attention, is because women and girls need attention, but proper attention. But also marginalized girls need attention. But also girls in private schools need attention. Because where I live in the southeast of England, I was lucky when I came to the United Kingdom, which is my safe haven. I live in Guildford, where when I came there, I couldn't read and write. At 18 years old, I couldn't read and write. And I started going to my local library. I had a library card and going to local library. I live in a council estate, and I used to go to local library to read and write, but also understand the alphabet, but also understand English. And the local library gave me a power to learn how to code 7 coding languages in 2 years, because I couldn't get a job. And every time I go to the high street and try to get a job, the lady will say to me, "You are very nice, we love you very much, but unfortunately we can't give you a job." And I was very determined to get a job. And I think being here today at the United Nations, it's really important that every single year we come in and talk about digital equality, but at the same time help women and girls all around the world to have access. The industries, GSMA and Vodafone are doing amazing work across the world. But I think there is an urgent need right now to give women and girls and boys tools for the future workforce. We are, I was here for the last couple of days, but we're not even talking about the refugee girls. I work in a Kakuma refugee camp where there are 200,000 people live in that camp. 90,000 of them are women and girls. And if we really honest and looking for purpose, to get these women and girls engaged, but also the refugee girls who are from Sudan and Somalia and Burundi, they came from war-zone countries, and we're not even paying attention to these people. And so our work right now is to make sure that how can GSMA go in there? How can Vodafone go in there? And Vodafone is doing amazing work in the camp, because at the local library, they're giving them tablets, but that's not enough. Tomorrow, in 2030, I'll be 56 years old sitting here next to Matt. So how can we make sure that the girls from Kakuma are sitting here saying, I want to get a job. I am also a coder, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm a CIO, I'm a CEO. And so I think for me, I just want my story to kind of like serve as an example, but also as a way to find a purpose, not just purpose to put on a report and a CSR documents, but my purpose is to get 1 million women and girls to learn how to code, because I know how to do it, and I will not rest until 1 million women and girls learn how to code from private sector. We have organizations like Unilever. So many companies are engaging right now, but I think we need to go home on Friday saying that in 2030, we would like to get, we don't want to have young women like Mariam Jam out there wandering the street of Senegal, being abused, not getting jobs. What we need now is to get them into science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, and design, but also use programs that will give them a future. If a young girl has got a skill, she's got money, she's intelligent, she knows how to do things, it's very unlikely that she's going to get in trouble. Yeah. So that's my message for you guys.
Thank you so much. Wow, really powerful. Such a powerful and moving story. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think building on that, Matt, this is something that's near and dear to your heart. You're chairman of the board of, or you're on the, I'm sorry, not chairman of the board, you're on the committee really to focus on gender diversity and empowerment in the mobile industry. Can you talk about that? It wasn't the question I was going to ask you, so I'm stumbling a little bit, but I just feel like it's something I know you...
So we have been engaged for a couple of years on SDG number 5, gender equality, and we, through the Broadband Commission and ITU, I'm chairing the Access Coalition, where we're looking into ways of exactly what you're saying, reaching out and making sure that everyone is included and everyone has the possibility to use the mobile device. And we are going to launch, or we have an initiative called Empower Youth, which is together with UNICEF, and it's not only the bad things, because there are plenty of bad things, but there's also a whole bunch of good things. And I think we need to be very mindful of looking at the whole pamphlet of things. So not only the access to the device, but also how do you treat your data, awareness, turning it off, turning it on, etc.
Thank you so much. That's good. Now, building on this, maybe, Patricia, you could talk about how, what can we do to accelerate the progress in this area? I mean, we're doing a lot of work, but it's not enough, and we need to do more, and we need to do more quickly. Can you
So,
talk
two
about
things. We're just coming from a session where we discussed, where there was the launch for the Data for Now project. And Martin and I were talking to the audience about the Data for Good projects that we have launched in Ghana. If you do not have ownership from government, this isn't going to work. It is important that the leadership believe that this is necessary and it has to be done. And so for us in our country, our president is leading the charge. Our president is leading the charge and making it happen. The second thing is that government must want to partner the private sector. The government cannot do this on their own. No government can deliver all the SDGs on their own. They will need to work with the private sector. And that is why for Vodafone, we stepped out to say, can we partner? Can we share data? Can we integrate? And see how we can help to look at population trends and to help make life-saving decisions on health, on transport and agriculture, etc. So for me, these are important. If you don't get buy-in, if you don't get belief from the leadership, from the country, from the head, and also from the private sector, then this isn't going to work. You can't accelerate it as you'd want to.
That's great.
I agree. I mean, the multi-stakeholder approach is really crucial here. And I think for many, many years we've been working in silos. And you have people who really are doing amazing work, but I think at one stage we need to look at common purpose. but also find a way to work together. And at I Am the Code, what we're trying to do is to make sure the government, the private sector, the investors, the philanthropic foundations, we're all working together to advance their medication. And this is really important. And I think that there is access. Many companies are giving access. Telecom companies are giving access to women and girls in places around the world. They're doing amazing work. But I think at one stage we need to look at the global workforce. How can we get these people working for companies? But also, how can we make sure data is cheaper? How can we make sure that in the places where we don't go, like the refugee camp, the slums, the places where it's very difficult for people to have access,
Right.
how can we make sure they have digital literacy? At the camp, for example, in Kenya, the only library we have at the camp is Vodafone and I Am the Code part working together, giving tablet to young girls who are amazingly doing well in literacy and numeracy. But without those tablets Vodafone gave them, for example, and I Am the Code content, it will be difficult for the girls to learn. So I think this multi-stakeholder approach, collaboration, but meaningful and purposeful collaboration, meaning that we would like in 2030, we would like to come back together and ensure that we are working together with clear impact and clear case studies that we work together. Because for many, many years we've been working in silos, and this is really not helping the marginalized and the poor people. It's not helping. And we also need to find a way to say, actually, I don't know how you guys do things. Like what Matt said earlier, digital identity is absolutely crucial right now for refugees. But how can we make sure GSMA work with UNHCR, for example, to bring digital identity in these camps? The people don't have digital identity. But so the collaboration and being humble in a way that we're asking, actually, I don't know, how can you help me? How can we work together? How can we collaborate for the greater good? I think the world needs this now.
Yeah, I was going to say the barriers that you spoke about from governments are critical that we work to try to avoid them. And for instance, exactly what you're saying, we're working with UNHCR on the refugee side in Ghana and other places. When you're going to get the SIM card, you need to be able to prove who you are. We need to check the KYC, know your customer. Otherwise, we're not allowed to sell a SIM card. Now, when you are coming as a refugee, most likely you will not have any form of identity, and therefore you are not able to get a SIM card and therefore not being connected. And this is hugely important for refugees and forced displaced people to know where they are and know where their family and friends are and what should I be doing. So we're working with governments to try to relax those requirements on refugees, and we have been doing good work in Ghana together with Vodafone and others to abolish that, or at least to relax the need of regulation. So I think that's a positive example, but there much more needs to be done. And I think the time is now to really take the private-public partnership serious, because we all want to do the same thing. Sometimes the private industry is leading and knows exactly what the barriers are for us to build out this coverage gap or the usage gap. And sometimes the government is leading, and we need to be able to listen to each other to move forward.
So important to have that interconnection, especially now.
But we all want the same thing, right?
Yeah,
So it's more of finding the right tools and getting sharp enough and delivering. And I mean, Vodafone here is doing some amazing job of trying to make sure that people are connected and have a better life.
Yeah. Can you talk about that, some of the work that you're doing in that area to make sure that people are connected?
So across the world, we touch 650 million people. So driving connectivity is core to what we do on a daily basis. But as she said, going beyond the customers who want the service to those who need the service is very important. And as I mentioned, looking at our youth, so that they can embed it in their future, looking at those who are operating below the poverty line. How do you get a device into this person's hand? Because it is not just the connectivity you give to the person, you open up a world of access where the person can go on to online training and pick up skills. People are learning trade because they have device and they can get access to data and can be able to feed their families. So this is core. This is fundamental to, if we believe that we really want to drive our businesses beyond profit, then it is about driving access into the hands of those who need it, working with government to appreciate where the need, the opportunity is, and taking a step as corporates. We can't always focus on our internal businesses and how we make profit. It is important to go beyond that, because it opens up a bigger world. And we can't have a country like Ghana where you have people who are not connected to the digital world. You set the country so many steps back, so many steps back. If you look at the work that is being done in Kenya and in many other refugee camps, this is not about profits. This is about opening access to people who need it and improving their lives. And here's a living testimony, as she shared. So these things are...
Absolutely. I mean, in the work Vodafone is doing in Kakuma refugee camp, you just need to imagine young women and girls who will never come out of the camp. So these girls, they will never come out of the camp. They are refugees. But thanks to the library we have in Angelina Jolie School, over 300 girls can go every day to the library, and they have devices. But we provide the content. But we need to also think about the future. If we're gonna get out of this room today and go home, as I said earlier, we need to think about the future. What are we trying to do as an industry, as communities? Are we trying to help people? We want to make money, but at the same time, we need to think about people who need us. Yeah. So, and Vodafone and GSMA, they have massive influence around the world, and they can push government, the private sector, to do more. And we can do more. Sometimes it doesn't cost a lot of money. What it costs empathy and compassion and kindness to help other people. And we need to look into the United Nations here. Digital cooperation will need empathy, big empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If I may, I think we're onto something really important where I can see a big change in the attitude of doing business. Previously, it has all been around profit. We need to increase our profit. Lately, last 4 years or 5 years or so, I can clearly see a movement towards this triple bottom line notion where profit, that's important. We need to continue to make money to be able to be sustainable. But the planet dimension is becoming increasingly important. And we can see that here. Yeah. But also the people dimension. That's the 3 Ps, right? The profit, people, and planet. And we need to focus on all those 3. And at least within GSMA and our membership, we talk around those 3 topics, and it's demanded by our shareholders, it's demanded by our customers, but it's hugely demanded by our employees. They don't want to come and work for us if we don't have a clear agenda for sustainability, and I'm sure you would agree with me on that. And I think that's something really very positive. They're moving to become more complex, but more holistic as well.
That's easier said than done.
Much easier said than done.
As Patricia can speak to, you've done so much work in this area, really embedding this work around the climate and empowering people. From your perspective, if there's one bit of advice you could give to organizations wanting to start this journey, for them it may be opaque, so is there something that you could share with a business leader that may be out in the audience or that's watching us that could help them on their way?
Well, I believe every business needs to look into why you operate. I think it's important. There's something we say, something needs to drive you every morning to come to work, and it cannot be money. It cannot be money. It has to be how you improve the lives of others. Even if you run a telecom business, definitely you will have emissions. So just to make a point on the planet, you cannot operate and say, I don't care what happens to the planet. You must have a plan that says, I will work towards getting to renewable energy by 2025. This is what we have said. And so every market in all the 24 countries are actively putting plans in place. Some have started, some are on the journey, but there must be the effort to make it happen. I think you only have to start. After all, we have how many goals over there? So many indicators. So we have looked at 3, 4, and 5, and we are actively working on it. And I don't think you should try and achieve all. Right. You must look at where you can make impact, because you operate because of the people. You operate in an environment, which is your planet. And so this is fundamental.
Thank you so much.
I totally agree.
Don't forget the people dimension.
I really agree. I mean, the purpose piece, I really like that about Vodafone and many other organizations. 1 million women and girls how to code is like goal number 5 and goal number 8. We need to give women and girls jobs. This is so crucial. The future workforce need to be empathetic, compassion, and kindness. We need to bring the young women in offices, tech girls to learn how to code, but also be part of the digital world. This is so crucial. So goal number 5 and 8, I think that we need to look into that, but also stop human trafficking and stop the crisis around the world that are hurting people, that are stopping people progress. So we need that absolutely.
Yeah,
But it's not, I completely agree with you, but it's equally selfish from our side. We need the good brains.
Yes.
We need more girls, we need more women to be part of our industry. Today, we're not great in the ICT industry. I think the workforce is roughly 80-20, 80% men, 20% women. That's not good enough. We need to fish talents from the other side as well. That's where the real intelligence lies.
Such a great discussion. We're at time, unfortunately. I could talk to you all day. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for joining us, and look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you so much.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. What an amazing panel. Thank you so much. Mariama and I actually met in 2009. She had delivered the first TEDx Africa talk in Accra. It was a room of young activists and leaders talking about, at the time, how Africa needed to respond to the development, and back then it was development, not sustainable development, challenges. So super, super exciting to see how far things have moved. Obviously, you know, with regard to what we said before, 3/4 of the world are covered by mobile service. That leaves about 2 billion and a quarter of the world's population left out. I know a lot of people are working very, very hard to close that gap, which is actually very, very amazing. For those of you that have just joined us, welcome to the Sdg Action Zone, powered by the Sdg Strategy Hub and Sdg Action Campaign. Really, really, really glad to have you here. We are talking about getting to exponential, right? Closing the gap between awareness and action, creating and helping inspire and harness greater demand, supply, and accountability for sustainable development goals, and really, really, you know, welcoming the world into the UN. And next year we have bigger plans. We're hoping to replicate this across a couple of other cities around the world. And the idea is really, you know, we're working to aggregate up on the Decade of Action. Next year, 2020, is a big year from UN and international community terms. It is 10 years to go to 2030. We have 20 years of the Global Compact? 10 years of Global Compact? 20? 10? 20? Anyhow, it's Beijing plus 25. We have an anniversary for the children, the rights of the Convention of the Child. And you know, everyone here is testament that there's a lot of work being done. A lot more work needs to be done. We need to go further, faster, and deeper, and making sure that we're not leaving anyone out. So thank you, everyone, for your commitment.